Although it's only been a few years, the 2017 wide receiving class has already produced some elite talent. Today, we're going to be taking a look back at the top 10 wide receivers from that recruiting class. As always, we're going to be using the 24/7 rankings for this list. If there's a top 10 you'd like to see, drop a comment down below and it very well could be my next video. Before we get to the top 10, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to the channel. If you love college football content, then this is definitely the place for you. Normally for these videos, I dive right into the top 10, but I thought it would be fun to share some notable players who didn't quite make the list. Raiders wide receiver Henry Ruggs just missed it as he came in at number 11. Eagles wide receiver Jalen Reagor came in at number 13. Two wide receivers who are going to be entering the draft this year are Amari Rodgers and Tylan Wallace, who were number 16 and number 17 respectively. Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb came in at number 24. Broncos wide receiver KJ Hamler was number 47. Jaguars wide receiver Laviska Shenault was number 73. Bills wide receiver Gabriel Davis was even lower, coming in at number 268. Oh, and here's probably my favorite one. Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson, who was the best rookie wide receiver in the NFL this past year, came in at number 308. Alright, well, those were some notable names from the 2017 class. Now, let's get to the top 10. Kicking off this list is Jamon Osbon. He attended the IMG Academy, where he had 18 catches for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns his senior season. During his freshman year at Texas A&M, he caught 50 passes for 600 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was named to the All-SEC freshman team. He appeared in 9 games his sophomore year, finishing with 31 catches for just under 400 yards, but had no receiving touchdowns. He returned to form a year later, and he appeared in all 13 games for the Aggies. He led the team with 66 catches for 900 yards and was second on the team with 5 receiving touchdowns. He earned the Offensive Leadership and Offensive Strength Award at the end of the season for Texas A&M. He had planned on returning for his senior season with the Aggies, but due to the COVID pandemic, he opted to sit out the season and begin training for the 2021 NFL Draft. Coming in at number 9 is the 2020 Heisman Trophy winner, Devonta Smith. Originally, Smith was committed to Georgia, but he flipped his commitment to Alabama. During his senior season, Smith had over 1,100 receiving yards and 22 receiving touchdowns. As a true freshman at Alabama, Smith didn't see the field too much. He had only 8 catches, but they were good for 160 yards with 3 touchdowns. What everyone remembers Smith for was his game-winning touchdown catch in the national championship in overtime. Ironically, it came against Georgia, the team he had originally committed to. His playing increased during his sophomore year as he had 42 catches for 700 yards and 6 touchdowns. Devonta Smith said repeatedly that he didn't want to be remembered for that one play in the title game. He didn't want it to define his career. Well, during his junior season, he showed that he was one of the best wide receivers in the country. He finished the season with 68 catches for just under 1,300 yards and 14 touchdowns. He decided to return for his senior season as opposed to entering the NFL Draft, and I think that it was the right move for him. Devonta Smith became the first wide receiver to win the Heisman Trophy since Desmond Howard. He finished the season with 117 catches for over 1,800 yards and 23 receiving touchdowns. It was one of the greatest seasons we'd ever seen from a wide receiver in college football history. He set 8 Alabama receiving records while at Alabama, and if I were to be a betting man, I think he's going to go fairly early in the upcoming NFL Draft. Number 8 on this list is DJ Matthews. At Trinity Christian High School, he entered his senior year having already totaled 136 catches for 2,200 yards and 26 touchdowns, but in his senior season, he saw significant time at quarterback. He finished his senior season by totaling 1,500 yards with 19 total touchdowns. As a freshman, he appeared in only 9 games, racking up 6 catches for 72 yards and a touchdown. Then, during his sophomore campaign, he got 42 passes for 400 yards with a touchdown. His numbers were very similar during his junior season as he caught 36 passes for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. In September, he announced his time at Florida State was over and he'd be entering the transfer portal. Although he never did much in the receiving game, Matthews was great in the punt return game as he ranks 10th in team history with just under 600 punt return yards. In November, he announced that he would be transferring to Indiana, where he's going to play for the Hoosiers in 2021. Up next on the list at number 7 is Taijon Lindsay. While at Bishop Gorman High School, his team went 44-0. That's not too bad. In 2015, he got 45 passes for 1,100 yards with 14 touchdowns. He also contributed 236 157 punt return yards, and had an interception and 2 pass breakups on the defensive side. He was a first-team All-Nevada selection and was viewed as the best overall player in the entire state. He was originally committed to Ohio State, but he flipped his commitment and chose Nebraska. He appeared in all 12 games as a true freshman in 2017. He finished the season with 12 catches for 76 yards and became the 5th Husker true freshman to ever record at least a dozen catches. Then, in 2018, he had 3 catches for 22 yards in the first 4 games of the season before he opted to transfer. He announced that he'd be heading to Oregon State. Now, he didn't have to sit out a season, so he suited up for the Beavers in 2019. He had 18 catches for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, and also ran the ball 8 times for 70 yards and a touchdown. Then, in 2020, he caught 11 passes for 159 yards and 3 touchdowns. In addition, he had 75 rushing yards and completed 2 passes for 54 yards and a touchdown. He's expected to return to Oregon State in 2021. Number 6 on this list is Trayvon Grimes. During his time at St. Thomas Aquinas, he finished with 42 catches for 770 yards with 11 touchdowns. His senior season ended after a few games due to a knee injury, but he was still one of the most highly touted wide receiver recruits in the nation. He committed to Ohio State, where he barely saw the field. He appeared in only 2 games, and he caught 3 passes for 20 yards. Then he opted to transfer to Florida. In 2018, there were reports that Grimes left Ohio State due to racial slurs directed towards him while with the program. He was eligible to play immediately in 2018 and became one of the Gators' top weapons. Over his next 2 seasons, Grimes caught 57 passes for over 800 yards with 5 touchdowns. In 2020, Grimes started all 11 games for Florida before opting out of the Cotton Bowl to declare for the NFL Draft. He finished the 2020 season with 38 catches for 600 yards and a career-high 9 touchdowns. He was third on the Gators in yards receiving and in touchdowns. Before we get to the top 5, if you could please take a second and give this video a thumbs up, I would greatly appreciate it. It helps share the video with more cultural ball fans, and it only takes a second to do. Coming in at number 5 on this list is Jeff Thomas. While at East St. Louis High School, he racked up 177 catches for 3,500 yards and 41 touchdowns. During his senior season, he caught 50 passes for 1,100 yards and 13 touchdowns. While at Miami, he never really lived up to the hype. During his freshman season, he finished with 17 catches for 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. He stepped it up the next season as he finished his sophomore campaign with 35 catches for 600 yards and 3 touchdowns. However, his season was cut short when he was dismissed from the team prior to week 12 after having an argument with the wide receivers coach. After he was dismissed, it looked as if Thomas would be transferring to Illinois, but he opted to return and remain with the Hurricanes. During his junior season, he had 31 catches for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he was suspended for a few games due to a violation of team rules. Following his junior season, he declared for the 2020 NFL Draft instead of returning for his senior season. He signed with the New England Patriots as an undrafted free agent in 2020, but in September, he was waived by the team during final roster cuts. He didn't get picked up by any team for a practice squad during the season. Moving on to number 4 is Joseph Lewis, who committed to USC. In 2016 at Hawkins High School, he had 21 catches for 550 yards with 7 touchdowns, 61 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 2 fumble recoveries. As a freshman at USC, he barely saw the field and only caught 4 passes, and that would be the end of his time with the Trojans. In 2018, he was charged with 1 felony count of injuring a spouse, girlfriend, or child's parent after a prior conviction stemming from an arrest in July. In May of 2018, he pleaded not guilty to 2 misdemeanor counts of domestic battery with an injury stemming from 2 incidents in February. As part of his sentence in Los Angeles County Supreme Court, he was required to serve 60 days in jail and complete 36 months of probation and a year-long domestic violence treatment course. He was released on July 6th after just 3 weeks in jail, but less than 2 weeks later, he was arrested on suspicion of felony domestic battery with an injury. Prosecutors accused him of punching, scratching, and strangling his girlfriend in July. He was sentenced to 1 year in jail, 5 years of probation, and 52 domestic violence prevention classes, but he was released from jail halfway through his 1-year sentence. And I think it's safe to say his football career looks like it's over. Before we get to the top 3, drop a comment down below and take a guess as to who the top 3 wide receiver recruits were from the 2017 class. Number 3 on this list is Jerry Jeudy. He attended Deerfield Beach High School, where as a senior, he had 76 catches for 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns. He committed to Alabama, where he would join a very stacked wide receiver room featuring Devonta Smith, who was on this list earlier, and Henry Ruggs, who barely just missed the list. During his freshman season, Jeudy didn't see much action. He caught 14 passes for 250 yards with 2 touchdowns. but he got much more of an opportunity during his sophomore year and really broke out, as he was named a consensus first-team All-American and first-team All-SEC. He won the Biletnikoff Award, which goes to the nation's best wide receiver. He had 14 receiving touchdowns, which led the conference, and was tied for third in the country. He also had over 1,300 receiving yards, which was second in the conference. His numbers declined just a little across the board during his junior season, as he caught a career-high 77 passes, but only 1,100 receiving yards and only 10 receiving touchdowns. Still, he was named to the All-SEC first team yet again. He currently is 6th all-time in Alabama history in receptions, 5th in receiving yards, and 3rd in receiving touchdowns. Jeudy declared for the 2020 NFL Draft and was the second wide receiver taken, being picked behind teammate Henry Ruggs. I think it's pretty good that Alabama had 3 wide receivers that were in the top 11 of this class and 3 guys that are all going to be early first-round picks. During his rookie season with the Broncos, Jerry Jeudy caught 52 passes for 850 yards with 3 receiving touchdowns. Number 2 on this list is another player who was a rookie in the NFL this past season, T. Higgins. As a senior at Oak Ridge High School, Higgins caught 68 passes for over 1,000 yards with 18 receiving touchdowns. He also had 3 punt return touchdowns and even had a pick 6 on defense. He committed to Clemson, where he was rated as their highest recruit. Higgins had a limited role during his freshman season, as he finished with only 17 catches for 350 yards and 2 touchdowns. During his sophomore season, he was named second team All-ACC and earned first team All-Conference honors from ESPN and Pro Football Focus. He led the Tigers in receptions with 59 and receiving touchdowns with 12. He totaled just under 1,000 receiving yards on the season. He stepped it up his junior year as he was named first team All-ACC. He finished with exactly 59 catches again, but had nearly 1,200 receiving yards and 13 receiving touchdowns. He became the first player in Clemson history to have back-to-back seasons with at least 10 receiving touchdowns. He finished his Clemson career number 17 all-time in receptions, number 8 in receiving yards, but is currently tied with Sammy Watkins and DeAndre Hopkins for the most receiving touchdowns in program history with 27. Higgins entered the 2020 NFL Draft and was the first pick taken in the second round by the Cincinnati Bengals. He finished his rookie campaign with 67 catches for over 900 yards with 6 touchdowns. His 908 receiving yards ranked him 3rd amongst all rookie receivers in 2020. Coming in at number 1 on this list is Donovan PeoplesJones. He attended Cass Technical High School, where he was the consensus number 1 wide receiver in the nation. He was named the 2016 Michigan High School Football Player of the Year. As a senior, he had 60 catches for 1,000 yards and 17 touchdowns. PeoplesJones opted to stay close to home and attended Michigan. He was used more in the return game than in the passing game his freshman year. He finished with the 2nd most return attempts and 8th most return yards in a single season in Michigan history. In addition, he caught 22 passes for just under 300 yards. He was named a freshman All-American by the Football Writers Association of America and 24/7 Sports, and was named Michigan's Rookie of the Year. During the 2018 season, he led the team with 39 catches for over 500 yards and had 7 receiving touchdowns. Following the 2019 season, he was named to the All-Big Ten Special Teams 3rd Team and All-Big Ten Offensive Team Honorable Mention by the media. His numbers were down across the board, as he caught 34 passes for over 400 yards with 6 receiving touchdowns. Instead of returning for his senior season, he declared for the 2020 NFL Draft. He was drafted by the Cleveland Browns in the 6th round with the 187th overall pick. He finished his rookie season with only 14 catches for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Well, that wraps up this top 10. Who on this list were you surprised to see, or who was a player that you're surprised didn't pan out the way you thought they would? Drop a comment down below and let me know. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. If you love college football content, then this is definitely the place for you. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.